welcome everyone here at our Sustainable Future Week. My name is Pieter Haak. I'm a tech reporter at Politico. The next panel is what we call an innovation pitch. We have two tech companies that will make their case why their technology could solve the climate crisis or at least mitigate the consequences of climate change. They will do that with a presentation, but of course we won't leave them unchallenged afterwards. I once again encourage you to tweet with the hashtag Politico Sustainability. First on stage, we will have Julien de Normandie. He's a familiar name here in the Brussels bubble, as he was France's former agriculture minister. Now, however, he's Chief Impact Officer at SWEEP, which is a tool to measure carbon emissions. But he will explain, of course, more himself. He gets 3 to 4 minutes to make his case. All yours, Julien.
Thank you very much, Peter. First of all, I would like to thank Politico for the invitation and for this very relevant event. As you said, I have one specificity. I used to be a minister during 5 years, first for housing and after that for agriculture and food. And after being a minister, I decided to go to the private sector and to join a fabulous company called SWEEP. SWEEP is a startup dedicated to the carbon issue, but with one innovation, very important innovation, is to tackle the carbon issue through the data. To be honest, I think many of us are totally convinced that if we want to tackle carbon issue, we need to have a data approach. Why we need to have a data approach? Because you discussed, Peter, 2 hours ago about the greenwashing. We discussed about how to fix some targets. We discussed about how to monitor the activities of the company. Without a data approach, it's not possible. And at SWEEP, we provide with the software, the companies, this data approach. That means that we have developed a software, a SaaS platform, providing with this data approach. And thanks to this, you could have some auditable, reliable, effective data about your organization, the measurement of the carbon footprint of your corporates and of your company, the way to reduce it, the way to contribute positively to the climate, and the way to communicate about the carbon issue. And this is 2 pictures from our software to show you that thanks to this data approach, you could fix some targets, you could assess some scenario, and then you could have the dashboard telling you, okay, what is my footprint, how to achieve my target, how to monitor the footprint pathway I have decided to follow it, and so on and so on. This is very important to conclude. This is very important to have this data approach. Without having a data approach, it will be very, very, very difficult for any corporate, especially institutional, financial institution, to have credible targets and to have a credible way to reduce the carbon footprint. And even the new regulation, I mean the coming regulation, CSRD, SFDR, taxonomy, and so on, all of them are based on this data carbon approach. And I'm sure that in a couple of years, maybe 1 or 2 years, the data, as we called no financial data, extra financial data, will become as important as the financial data. It's just a matter of time, but they need to have all the implementation of the tools to let the company be ready when this will happen. Here is, in a few words, in a few minutes, what we are currently doing at SWEEP, a very positive and famous company. We are Big Corp, we are Entreprise à Mission. We have raised around 1,000 million of euros 1 year ago. So we are now implementing our solution to many companies, and I will be very pleased to discuss it more in detail with you. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Julien. And now we turn online because next on stage, or rather on the virtual stage, is Ina Braverman. She's CEO at the Eco Wave Power company that wants to get electricity from sea waves and oceans. That sounds very out there, so go ahead, Ina, to explain.
Thank you. So if you can start my presentation, and then I will begin. So, okay. So first of all, I would like to thank you for hosting me in Politico conference. I find your work very impressive and definitely very important. And today I want to present the work of Eco Wave Power and explain a little bit generally about the wave energy sector. So first of all, why wave energy is so great? As opposed to other renewable energy sources such as solar and wind, wave energy in suitable locations can operate around the clock 24/7. Solar is amazing during the day, but when there's winter or night, it doesn't work. Wave energy can keep working. The density of water is 832 times greater than the density of air, meaning we can produce much larger energy amounts with much smaller, thus cheaper devices. Also, 2.4 billion people live within 100 kilometers from a coastline, showing that wave energy can save significant amounts in transmission costs. If we're looking at the US market, according to the Energy Information Administration, wave energy can produce 66% of all the United States energy needs, and it is forecasted to produce at least 10%, which is 188 gigawatts of all Europe's electricity by the year 2050. And the biggest thing is that according to the World Energy Council, wave energy, if implemented all over the world, can produce twice the amount of electricity that the world produces now. Next slide, please. So if wave energy is so great, why don't we see wave energy everywhere? We see wind farms and solar farms, but not wave energy. And the answer kind of lies in the photo before you. This is not the Eco Wave Power technology. This is another technology called Pelamis. 99% of the competition decided to do what Pelamis did, basically put these bulky, huge floaters in the offshore. And this is the way they wanted to produce electricity. Offshore means 4 or 5 kilometers into the sea. This created very, very high prices because they need ships and divers and underwater mooring and cables. Pelamis' development cost was in excess of $150 million. On top of that, the companies didn't take into account that in the offshore, there are waves of 20 meters and even higher, and no man-made stationary equipment can survive the loads of a 20-meter wave height. So Pelamis broke down after 3 days of operation on the coastline of Portugal, total loss to the system. Insurance companies saw that it's so expensive and it's breaking down all the time, refused to insure offshore wave energy. Environmentalists, which were supposed to be the greatest proponents of wave energy, were objecting offshore wave energy because it created a new presence on the ocean floor, which disturbed the marine environment. And most of these companies never got the chance to connect to the electrical grid because they were so busy at surviving, just not breaking down and lowering their price. Next slide, please. So what we see on the screen now, this is Eco Wave Power, a completely innovative, pioneering, new concept. We don't go into the offshore, we are in the onshore and nearshore. We're connecting to existing man-made structures. The only thing in the water are the floaters, which belong in the water, and all the expensive components, the generators, the hydraulic equipment, the automation, is on land, just like a regular power station. Smart and simple system. Next slide, please. So how does the technology work? Our floaters are basically going up and down with the movement of the waves. They're pushing the hydro cylinders, which transmit biodegradable fluid into land-located accumulators. A pressure is being built, the higher the wave, the higher the pressure, used to turn the hydromotor, turning a generator, and sending clean electricity to the grid. Next slide. And you can press play, yes. So the advantages of our technology is, first of all, that it's 100% environmentally friendly. We don't connect to the ocean floor. We only connect to existing man-made structures which already disturb the environment and change the ecological balance. We're cost efficient. We don't need ships. We don't need divers. We don't need underwater mooring or cables. Our Gibraltar first grid-connected power station cost us only $450,000 in development costs, which in comparison to $150 million by Pelamis is a huge scientific breakthrough. can you press play please on the bottom video? In the bottom video, you can see also that our technology comes with the patented storm protection mechanism. When the waves are too high for the system to handle, the floaters automatically go up above the water level and they stay in the upward position until the storm passes. When the storm passes, the floaters go back into the water and commence their operation. And our technology is also fully insurable by reputable insurance companies and have been connected stably to the grid in Gibraltar for 6 years. So basically, EcoWave Power has been able to do something that other wave energy technologies weren't able to do, and show that wave energy can be simple, can be easy to implement. And right now we're in the final construction stages of our second grid-connected power station in Israel, to be followed by the third one in the port of Los Angeles. And we're also developing projects in Portugal, in Spain, and in other locations around the world. And we're publicly traded on Nasdaq US under the stock symbol WAVE. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those two pitches. Now let's engage in a little discussion. We now heard something about a data approach to carbon and wave energy. Very new concepts, and I can imagine then when you come to Brussels or when you address a Brussels audience, it's maybe difficult to make your case with unproven technology. When you also have to fight maybe established industries, established lobbies. Let's start with you, Mr. de Normandie. How do you navigate the landscape here in Brussels and also the regulatory landscape?
First of all, I think Brussels is a place where the new regulation is setting up, is decided, and after that has to be implemented in all the state members. So when I am speaking or when I'm thinking about Brussels, first of all, I'm thinking about the place where the new regulation will be decided. And at this point of view, I think it's very important to have in Brussels people aware about the new technologies, ready to change a kind of mindset. That means accepting that we could change the approach to tackle one issue, to find a solution, very open mind, if I can say, and for that it's important to have discussion between private sector and public sector. But when we're speaking about the carbon issue, if we want to move forward and to go ahead very quickly, we know that we need to make it differently. That means that if we are still implementing the current policy, we will not achieve the Paris Protocol Agreement goals. So we need to do it differently. And when you are trying to find a new way to tackle carbon issue, you know that you have to accept to be open-minded, and you have to be curious about the new technologies. Yeah. So I think it's very important to have this kind of stage events place to exchange between private sector and public sector, definitely.
Yeah, so change the mindset and try to have an open mind, new approach. Mrs. Braverman, I can imagine that wave energy is something that doesn't ring a bell when you first address regulators. How do you try to connect with them? What's your approach there?
So basically, you're absolutely right. One of the biggest, I always say, showstoppers for new technologies, including wave energy, is the fact that there's simply no regulations most of the times for such technologies. So many times we get contacted by ports or energy ministries that saw our technology somewhere, and they're saying, okay, come implement it in this and that port. And when we tell them, okay, like we get all excited, what should we do? And they say, we don't know, and they start legislating and regulating at that moment. And sometimes it can take us 6 months to build the power stations, but 2 years to get the regulation in place. So there is a gap between the technological readiness level to the actual regulation. That's on the negative side. On the positive side, I would say from experience that positive things, positive technologies are contagious in a good way. For example, when we built our power station, a grid-connected power station in Gibraltar, and Gibraltar have made its first PPA, power purchase agreement, for wave energy, all the neighboring countries wanted the same. Right away, we signed deals with Spain, with Portugal, with Morocco, all our neighboring jurisdictions to Gibraltar. So again, on the negative side, when you're new, you just don't have the technologies. On the positive side, as soon as you start implementing in one place, other places will follow. They want more of the same.
So it takes time, but when it's there, it's very contagious.
But Peter, you know, and to coming back on what has been said, you know, Brussels, when we present Brussels, most of the time we present Brussels as a negative point of view. But for the private sector, it could be a huge opportunity as well. It could be an opportunity when people working in Brussels, they understand the quality of the new solution and the relevance of the solution. It could be an opportunity as well because Brussels is, very, very low in the manner to make the new policies. That means it could take 2 or 3 years from the idea of a new regulation and the adoption of the regulation.
So that's a call to speed up regulation for new tech?
No, that means that when you are in the private sector, you could anticipate what is going to happen in 2 or 3 years. If today, if you are a corporate or if you are an financial institution, you know that in a couple of years will happen the new regulation on climate, and it will be based on this data approach, or could happen a new regulation on the way to produce energy thanks to the waves. It will happen in 2 or 3 years, and this could let us, I mean the private sector, to anticipate it and to provide all the corporate with the right solutions. So this time could be an opportunity as well. It's not always a negative thing.
Yeah. So turn that frown upside down, let's say. Maybe a last question, because we're already running out of time. Of course, new technology requires funding. Most of the time, a lot of funding. Now we're in a difficult time era. There was the pandemic, then the war. There was a lot of turmoil on private and public markets. Do you find it difficult at the moment to secure that investment and to have that certainty to get to keep your company running? And what is also the role of public funding in there?
On my company point of view, we do not have any trouble just because we raised 100 million of euros last February. So we do not have any trouble regarding the financing situation. But for many of my colleagues, it could be a big issue. And for sure, the financial institution, they have to play their own role. That means that they have to assume their own responsibilities. When you are a financial institution, you cannot act only when everything is green, everything is okay, and during the difficult time, you are just at home and you don't do anything. And this is totally true for every sector, especially in the climate change sector. Let's imagine that it's about 100,000 billions of assets under management when you are speaking about the financial institution. 100,000 billions of assets. When you make the assessment of all these assets, less than 1% of these assets are compliant with the Kyoto Protocol. That means minus plus 1.5 degrees before the end of the century.
So financial institutions
they have a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think
I'll have to cut you short there.
They do not have to wait the new regulations. They have to act right now to finance a new solution as a wave energy or a company as a...
Indeed. What's your take, Mrs. Braverman, on the funding side?
So basically, a bit similar answer. Our company went public in July last year, so we raised sufficient funding for the next 3 years of operation for the company. So we have sufficient funding to finish our Israeli project, our LA project, and the first commercial scale megawatt project that we're planning to do in Portugal. However, what is lacking in terms of funding for wave energy, and again, for any other innovative technology, is the fact that when you're just starting a new technology, there's no debt financing that is available for that. And it's really difficult to reach commercial rollout and build multiple yielding assets or multiple power stations without having access to debt financing. For example, if you look at solar and wind projects right now, they're getting 80 to 90% for the projects from the banks. And if you're looking at wave energy, we're dependent either on equity raises, like we build a power station, we stop, and then we do an equity round, or on grants, which are not always available when you want to build. So that's kind of impeding progress.
That's also something where the financial world should maybe wake up to. We really want to thank you. We're already running out of time. Sorry for that, Mr. de Normandie and Mrs. Braverman. Thanks for making your pitch. It was very interesting. I think we learned a lot about new technologies and how they can be introduced in the regulatory and also maybe in the financial world. Our second day of the summit is now also almost coming to an end. I would really warmly thank you all for joining us on site and for our viewers online also, of course, to join us. I want to thank our partners for making this event possible. The leading partners there are Coca-Cola in Europe, GE, SQM. Presenting partners are Braskem, Civix, Google, MAN Trucks and Bus, and Ørsted, PepsiCo, and PGE. The networking partner is Chiesi and 3M. For the people online, I want to inform you that the event will continue tomorrow at 9:20 a.m. and we're going to discuss the circular economy in Europe. For those here in real life with us, you're now invited to join the roundtable discussion. The roundtable discussion will be about the sky is the limit, about space. It will take place in Le Petit Merode on the first floor, that is upstairs. It will be moderated by our senior policy reporter, Joshua Posener from Politico. So after that, the event will finish with networking drinks that will be at 5:10 here at the ground floor. And it will be followed by a short screening at 5:55 by the Public Service Media Goes Green, thanks to the support of the European Broadcasting Union. Thanks for that, and let's see each other later. Thanks.
This is an age of disruption, of profound revolutionary change.
What we're really asking ministers is to empower the ambassadors.
The only thing that you really push forth is the truth.
You don't see many women represented when it comes to the decisions as to how to handle the pandemic.